Thanks, Emma. So let me start by thanking Imran and Emma for what's been a fantastic talk. Every presenter has been insightful, inspirational, at the level that we'd expect every TED talk to be. So let me try and live up to that expectation. I'm going to try and take you on a slightly different journey. And I see we're at a point of inflection of the world which is quite profound. And it's quite profound because the journey that technology has taken us to right now is one where we often don't reflect on what's really happening to us and what's happening to the world. And it's all because of this one little thing here, which all the geeks amongst us will know what this is, which is a transistor. Right? This transistor, which was only invented in 1947, which set off the digital revolution as we know it today. It's powered the digital world as we know it. And just one statistic that you might not be familiar with is just how many transistors are in the world today. There are, in fact, 1 billion transistors to every human alive. Now just reflect on that, 1 billion transistors to every human alive. And the cost of it is almost nothing. And then somebody said, well, what does that mean? I don't what, 1 billion, what 1 billion transistors? I can't understand that. So I said, well, okay, in 2008, we had more transistors than we had grains of rice. In fact, we have enough transistors today, if we wanted to be able to put a tiny sensor on every one of those grains of rice and know how it went through its life. Okay? That's where we're at today. Not tomorrow, today. And then you start to think about, well, we can monitor things in ways that we never thought about. But 33 billion RFIDs out there. Every single razor blade that we buy has an RFID on there. Okay? We monitor things at a level that we just didn't even imagine. Right? We talk about sound and the insight that Stuart gave us on sound. We can do analysis on voice prints at a level that was just never even thought about. I can use voice biometrics to understand what sound is around. Video graphics, memories, the stuff that Matt talked about, it's just phenomenal. But it's not that. There's more to it than that. The internet lets us connect things in ways that we never thought about. We'll see 1 trillion devices on the internet before long. Every car has 5 to 10 microprocessors in there today. It's actually an information system on wheels. Every home has more technology there than we ever thought about. Okay? But this isn't about technology. It's about people. And the way Susan brought us back to people was absolutely critical because we're actually at a point where being able to connect with each other is much, much more important than ever before. Because you've got to feel part of being with people. Human beings are, in essence, social animals and need to be social. But one of the things that really has happened is technology has made people even more social than we ever imagined. Just think about what's happening with Generation Y and with the digital revolution. The digital natives, as we now talk about, they are so comfortable with technology that we didn't even imagine just how social they are. Let me give you a story. Now, I was at a birthday party not far from here, and there was a 21-year-old, one of my nieces, it was her birthday, and it was a fairly traditional birthday party where grannies and uncles and aunts and everybody gathered from around UK to come together to celebrate this 21st birthday. And so from 4 till 6, it was a fairly standard party. And then at 6 o'clock, it suddenly changed when the friends arrived. And the friends arrived with their iPhones, and they all made this circle and stood around in this circle with these iPhones, chatting to each other. And this old dear came up to me and said, "You're a technical person. What are they doing?" She couldn't relate to what was going on there because she couldn't relate to the things that were happening as a result of the technical revolution that was going on. Thousands of videos being uploaded, billions of pieces of information that's out there, if only we could relate to them. And then I recounted a story to her of my son. And my son, when he's 11, Up until that time, I travel a lot with my job, and it kind of goes with the role that I have. So I don't get chance to see them very often. And I have a habit, I will phone home at 7 p.m. Every day, wherever I am in the world, I'll phone home at about 7 p.m. and I'll pick up the phone, I'll talk to my son and my daughter. I'll say, how's the day? Fine. What happened today? Nothing. How's school? Fine. Do you want to talk to Mum? Right? And that's a standard conversation. Until 11, when he started twittering. Now, he came to Twitter because he wanted to come to Twitter. I didn't tell him to. I mean, okay, he's a bit of a techie geek because his dad is, but yeah, those things happen, right? But he's not allowed to use the phone in the lessons, but between lessons, he'd put a message out. Hey, Joe, he's a real jerk. Had a great time in physics today. Love maths. Don't like English. At the end of the day, I had an insight into his world which I would never have got had he not been twittering. But that's not the point of the story. The point of the story is last year when we flew to Portugal. And we were flying with this airline out of Gatwick. And as we got onto the flight, we walked on, and somebody had been sick on the seat in front of where we were about to sit down. And you know how you walk onto the plane and the smell just engulfs you. You just cannot escape that. You know, and the smell, you talk about smell, you don't want to smell sometimes, right? So the smell just kind of engulfed you to a level that you just couldn't get away from it. And my son said, do we have to sit here, Dad? Yes, there's no choice. This is where we're at. I'll try and move, but let's, took off. Now, it's one of these pilots that enjoys vertical landings and vertical takeoffs. You ever been on one of those? Yeah. And he took off. Now, my son had an ear infection. Now, this is incredibly painful. Now, he's 13 at this stage, so he doesn't want to cry. Okay. The landing is seriously painful. We get off the plane. First thing he does, tweets to his friend. Flew airline A, smelly plane, horrible landing, which would have gone airline B. Bang, out of the world. An hour later, airline A responded. Airline A responded, and he said, sorry to hear about your poor customer service. Contact us on this number. My son comes back. Look, see? Look at this. This is what Twitter's about. This is what Facebook, this is what it's about, right? 10 minutes after that, Airline B responded. Thanks for the positive quote. Look forward to seeing you next year. Right, just think about that. Think about open data and what we talked about in terms of open data. Think about how we need to be personal. We want interactive interactions at a personal level. What this allows us to do is to connect with people in ways that we couldn't connect with. What Usman talked about in terms of opening up information, that's what we're about. This is what the world is about. And what technology allows us to do is make the world much more relevant for everybody and anybody. And it's making it much, much more relevant in ways that we hadn't imagined, and we can't go backwards. But this isn't what this is about. This Smarter Planet stuff is not about that. It's actually because we have to change. And it's actually some very, very serious issues that we face that we have to step up to. Let me just play a video now to bring this on.
This is Rhonda with Roadside Assistance. What's your emergency?
Our truck is broken down. It's getting really hot in here.
Sir, are you a frozen chicken?
Yes.
And you're in the back of a broken down refrigerated truck?
Yes! And I think that some of us are starting to go bad.
No problem, sir. We get this all the time. In fact, food loss and wastage between field and fork can be as high as 50%.
50%? That could be 1 out of every 2 chickens?
Yes, sir. It's not surprising considering the inefficiencies in our food supply chain. For example, in the U.S., in Iowa, the typical carrot has traveled 1,600 miles from California, despite the fact that plenty of carrots are grown right there in Iowa.
Aha! Yeah, I knew we were driving in circles. Everyone said I was crazy, but we passed the same carrot 3 times!
Yes, sir. That doesn't surprise me. Did you know that just 60 years ago, we could create a single calorie of food with less than half a calorie of fossil fuel? Unfortunately, today, to produce a single calorie of modern supermarket food requires 10 calories of fossil fuel.
The system is mad! So hot. No one keeping track of our food supply. Getting dark. Tell the people what has happened here, so no one else spoils. in vain.
Yes, we'll be sure to spread the word. Now, did you have a moment to take our customer satisfaction survey? Sir? Sir?
Sir? Sir? But there's a serious point there, and the serious point is that we cannot sustain the world as we have it today. We have to change. But these are some stats from the UK, and this is the one that really startled me. 76% of the apples that you go and buy from Morrison's today, or from Asda today, will have traveled 3,700 miles. 3,700 miles on average, right? Now that is just not sustainable. And that's why we need a smarter planet. So when we talk about smarter planet, we know technology exists. We know people are changing the way we work and live is changing. But this is not sustainable. We have to change this. So for us, smarter planet is about saying we can instrument the world and really understand where things are going. Whether it's down at the Usman level of killing plants, or whether it's at the level of understanding how people are talking, or whether it's understanding how people are thinking. And yes, you can use emotive headsets and understand how people are thinking on the back of that. You know, there's lots of technology we can instrument things. We have to interconnect the world. We have to bring that information together and make it meaningful. We have to then make smarter decisions. And no, smarter decisions aren't what computers make. Smarter decisions is taking that information and applying it in the right way to make things smarter. So we can create a smarter planet, but this is a huge challenge, and we can't do it in one big full swoop. So we have to think city by city. And that's the point that we're making. We're at an inflection point where cities will transform. If I go to the Far East, if I go to the Middle East, we're looking at deserts and trying to create sustainable paradises with that. You look at some of the projects in the Middle East, and they're absolutely phenomenal. But actually, the interesting one for me is how we take creaking industrial cities and actually make thriving metropolises out of them. Whether it's Leeds, whether it's Sunderland, whether it's Manchester, whether it's Birmingham, they will all go through transformation. And the transformation really fits into one of three camps. And it's either because there are issues which are choking the city that makes it need to transform. It's either because they're getting a chunk of money coming in because of an investment. So if you look at London, London's transforming right now because of the investment ready for the Olympics. That investment drives significant change, or it's through inspiration. And the challenge I think Matt has given us here today is that Leeds historically has been led by inspiration, by some inspiring leaders. Can we find that inspiring leader again to help us drive us forward? And can we find what makes Leeds unique and special? So Innovation City Leeds, some of those challenging ideas that are being put forward by the city, gives us the ideas to potentially create what could be a great city going forward. And so when we start to think about the city and think about what makes a city smarter, so, you know, many people ask me, say, yeah, smarter planet's fantastic. What's a smarter city? And they start to talk about, well, is a smarter city just a smarter healthcare? Is it just smarter transportation? Is it smarter economy? Is it about smarter education? What is a smarter city? What makes it smarter? Is it just making each of those smarter? And we have to stop and ask ourselves, is that really all it's about? But actually, no, it isn't. Because what you start to understand is these things are all interconnected. And what Usman and actually many of the speakers talked about is the interconnection that creates the inspiration for the future. And Matt made that very clear in a lot of the pieces. It's actually bringing together insight. It's about having that unifying vision. It's about creating smarter services, utilities and services. It's about creating safe, happy citizens. Having a place where we feel comfortable to live in. We feel inspired to be here. Having those thriving, innovative businesses like the free serves that create that new wealth and new capability for the city. So it's actually bringing those together in new ways. And these are words that we're starting to use which start to describe what we think a smarter city is. Now, this isn't magic. It's not new. It just has to bring it together. You've got to have a way of creating value. Because if you can't create value, then the city starts to decay. So we have to create a value creation model, a means of creating wealth for us all at a level which is sustainable. The world is no longer just local cities. Just as our forefathers thought about the city as equal with any of the cities around the world, we have to have something that's globally recognized as leadership that's based here. And that has to bring together the academic intellect and insight that we have from the academic organization with the commercial organizations. They have to come together. We have to embed innovation. We can't stand still. If you stand still, everybody else will overtake you. We've got to continue to innovate. But we still need to have utilities that are right for us. So we've got to be able to travel. We've got to have the water. Yeah, just give you a statistic on water. If you look at the urbanization that's going on around the world, you'll see that 50% of the world today lives in cities. The current projection is something like 70-ish% in the next 15 years will live, of the population of the world will live in cities. And then you do the math and say, well, how much water does a person need to drink? Not wash, to drink. How much water actually exists in the city? Will we have enough water? No. Right. The cost of moving water, sufficient water to keep everybody, their thirst quenched, is not sustainable given today's structure. So we have to rethink the movement of water in cities alone for us to sustain the population growth. So we need utilities that survive, and we need that environment where everybody feels comfortable and are willing to bring up the next generation because it's the right place for us. It gives us that inspiration. So this provides an insight, and that's baked on technology where we get the insight from the information. We can instrument the city in a way which is appropriate. We've got to recognize that privacy and privacy issue, but there's an appropriate level of insight and information that we can bring from that. But really, the city is about individuals. And all our speakers, and the way Susan brought that to life for us was fantastic. But you can't just live as a bunch of individuals. The city is global. It needs something that's unique and inspiring that wants the world to look at Leeds because of its globalness. But we're in a time where we don't have a huge amount of cash. So we need to think very carefully about where we invest. And our leadership has to recognize that. And so when we talk to cities around the world, and by the way, I'm involved in about 150 smart city engagements around the world. Every city is thinking about this. And the race is on to see how we can transform our cities from where they are today to something completely different. And everybody is thinking about sustainability. So to give you some ideas on what's happening with sustainability, we had a 9-day conference with the Prince of Wales where we looked at sustainability at a level that nobody had looked at so far. And that was done in London at Lancaster House. Some of you will know that that King Albert did the Great Exhibition, and the Great Exhibition funded the creation of that exhibition road and the intellect that sits in Imperial College, in the Science Museum, the Victoria and Albert, and all that area. And what Prince of Wales is trying to do is recreate that through the investment is trying to make in sustainability, working with Marks and Spencer's, working with some of the thought leaders, because sustainability is key. We cannot afford to rip the world up as we've done so far. That notion of an apple taking 3,700 miles is not sustainable. So we have to rethink the city on these scales, and we need to create a fertile ground. We're not going to instantly give birth to 1,000-person organizations. This is going to be creating a fertile ground where small entrepreneurs can take their idea and start to really create new value and start to really create that fertile ground for new jobs, for new ideas to flourish, and those new ideas to connect with those other new ideas to then create the bigger enterprises that creates a value for us at a city level. That's what Smarter Cities is about. And Smarter Cities is about individuals connecting with technology in ways that we hadn't thought about before. So for us, we're at the start of a journey. We're at an inflection point where we can't turn back. Technology will continue to grow at pace and transform our lives. But the real question you need to ask yourself is, what part do you want to play in it? And what we're trying to do with a whole bunch of these TED sessions around the world is to start to make people understand that you have a huge role to play. This is a play which you are largely controlling and dictating. And through the projects and work that you do, you're all transforming the world. And so you have huge opportunity. It's a question of what you want to do with it. Thank you.